Join us for this episode as we continue our discussion of dietary supplements. This time, we'll discuss adulteration of supplements and give you some tips for choosing the right one. If you haven't already, please check out Part 1.
I'm Professor Megan.
I'm Professor Susan, and we're
your nutrition profs. We are registered dietitians and college professors who have taught more than 10,000 students about health and nutrition. We have answered a lot of questions about nutrition over the years.
Some questions we get asked every year, and some are rarely asked, but very interesting.
We are here to share our answers to these common and uncommon nutrition questions with you.
So bring your curiosity and let's get started. Welcome to our class.
Welcome, everyone, to Part 2 of our discussion of dietary supplements. We highly encourage you listen to Part 1 before delving into this episode. In Part 1, we answered the questions, who uses dietary supplements and how are they regulated and labeled?
That was a fun episode, and we hope highly informative for you. In this episode, Part 2, we will answer the questions, how do I choose a dietary supplement, and is there anything I should watch out for? This episode is a little long, but there is quite a bit to cover. Buckle up.
Remember from Part 1 that according to the DSHEA law that Congress passed in 1994, dietary supplements do not require FDA approval prior to sales. Consumers rely on the manufacturer or distributor to make sure that the supplement is safe, effective, and is not adulterated, and that it contains the ingredients in the amounts on the supplement facts label. So how do we know if supplements on the market are pure and of high quality?
Really, there is no guarantee. Remember, it's up to the manufacturer to do things correctly, and there is no inspection process in place to ensure that they're following correct protocols. However, there are some independent third-party groups that will verify the supplements for purity and potency. This is a voluntary process that supplement companies can use involving stringent testing that assesses the quality of their manufacturing facilities, their processes, and their products.
These third-party groups do a number of things. One, they verify if the supplement contains the ingredients listed on the label in the amounts and at the potency manufacturers says that the supplement has. Two, they make sure the supplement does not contain harmful levels of contaminants or any banned substances for athletes. Three, they verify that the supplement will actually break down and release into the body within a specified period of time.
That one I think is so important. I've seen images on the internet of abdominal x-rays that show swallowed pills just sitting there in the intestines or in the stomach. It's kind of gross, actually. But that literally means you're wasting money because you're not absorbing what you think is in the supplement.
Yeah, literally wasting money through the GI system.
Not good.
Not good. And I think people don't realize that that's even something that could occur.
Right.
So number 4, these third-party groups also verify that the supplement has been manufactured safely in a sanitary and well-controlled environment according to FDA requirements.
I hope they're all.
I know.
All supplements are made that way, but maybe not. If a dietary supplement has been verified by any of these organizations, it will have a certification mark somewhere on the label. The main groups that do this third-party verification are U.S. Pharmacopeia, or USP, NSF International, Informed Sport, the Banned Substances Control Group, and Consumer Labs. You can check the show notes at yournutritionprofs.com to see what the certification marks look like.
Unfortunately, though, less than 10% of the products on the market have actually been verified. Supplement manufacturers must pay these groups to verify their products. Those that do use it as a marketing tool, especially for consumers like collegiate athletes who have restrictions on some supplement ingredients. But this is voluntary and it costs money, so it's really not surprising that so few manufacturers go through this process.
Yeah, it's not surprising. There is one exception to that. One of the groups that does the independent third-party testing is Consumer Labs, as we mentioned earlier. And they do test for label accuracy, and they will compare multiple brands of the same type of supplement for quality. The interesting thing with Consumer Labs is they don't charge supplement manufacturers for their services. Instead, they're supported by consumers who subscribe to their information for less than $50 per year. I'm a subscriber.
Me too.
That makes them really independent, and they can pick and choose which supplements they want to test instead of the manufacturer asking them to test a supplement. If you subscribe, you can search for specific ingredients and supplements on their website.
A lot of really good information. One of the things these verification groups look for is product adulteration. So we've used that word a couple times. So adulteration is a sciencey word meaning contamination.
There are a few types of adulteration seen in dietary supplements. The first type is economic. A less expensive, similar ingredient is used in place of the more expensive one listed on the label.
And this may or may not make any difference to the supplement itself, but consumers may be paying for one thing, but getting another. It's like paying an extra $1 or $2 for a package of Oreos, but you get the store brand instead. It's probably not going to harm you, but you're not getting what you paid for.
Exactly. The second type of adulteration is pharmaceutical. This is where an active drug is included in a dietary supplement where it doesn't belong.
Yikes. Although most dietary supplements are assembled in manufacturing plants in the U.S., most of the active ingredients are actually produced in Asia, primarily China and India. Several different ingredients can be made within one single lab, some for prescription medications and others for dietary supplements.
So I guess this is how cross-contamination would occur. Some of the prescription drug ingredients contaminate the bins of dietary supplement ingredients, and manufacturers in the U.S. then buy these ingredients and incorporate them into their supplements without knowing if or how they've been adulterated. It's generally not done on purpose, but it can still be harmful.
Another way supplements can be adulterated would be the inadvertent addition of harmful minerals like lead or mercury. Plants absorb these minerals from the soil, and according to Consumer Lab, lead products from plants are sometimes used to color supplements like turmeric powder to make it more yellow, which could introduce excessive lead into the supplement. And this can happen in other supplements as well.
We could probably do a full episode just on this form of adulteration, but that's for another day.
The FDA maintains a searchable public database where known adulterated supplements are listed. Between 2007 and 2016, 746 supplements were adulterated with prescription drugs.
That seems like a lot.
I know, unfortunately. Some of these drugs had been recalled due to negative side effects and were no longer being used, but some had never been approved by the FDA.
Ooh, terrifying.
And remember that these ingredients are produced overseas, and they make drug ingredients for many countries, not just the U.S.
So I guess the contamination occurs because another country may have approved that drug, but our FDA did not.
Yes.
Or our FDA recalled it.
Yes. Oof. I mean, that's what I would think.
Scary.
Yeah. The types of drugs contaminating supplements varied, but most often included drugs for weight loss, laxatives, designer steroids, and sexual enhancement drugs. About 20% of the adulterated supplements contained 2 or more of these types of drugs.
2 or more. Wow.
Yeah.
And the interactions.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're getting.
The FDA issued voluntary recalls for only 48% of the 746 supplements. The others remain on the market. Yeah.
It's so risky to ingest unknown drugs. Most people don't know this, but there are more than 23,000 emergency room visits every year related to the use of dietary supplements.
Dang.
But you might have a negative side effect after taking a dietary supplement that isn't bad enough to go to the ER. Adverse or negative effects can really range from less serious to really damaging, and some can even be deadly. Some may occur almost immediately after taking a supplement, and others may develop over time. If you're taking dietary supplements, you should watch for things like unusual itching, rash, hives, wheezing, unusual fatigue, GI issues, difficulty urinating or changes in urine color, severe joint or muscle pain, or blood in your urine, vomit, or feces.
Other side effects could include mouth issues such as bleeding from the gums or swelling of the tongue, low blood pressure, mood or behavioral changes, fainting, chest pain, shortness of breath, stroke, and even liver failure.
Oh, man, that is so scary. And in the last decade, scientists have seen an increase in liver damage due to the consumption of herbal and dietary supplements. It's now the fourth leading cause of acute liver failure in the United States.
Wow.
Wow. It can be so severe that you might even need a liver transplant.
Oh, my.
It's definitely something to watch, and we'll do a future episode on liver issues, so stay tuned.
Those side effects are terrible, and I'm sure we've just scared some of our listeners.
I bet we probably have. The good thing is that these terrible side effects are relatively rare. But if you do experience any of these symptoms after taking a dietary supplement, stop taking it. Don't ignore it. Report it to the FDA. They have a safety reporting portal. They also have a safety complaint coordinator who you can call, and that number is 1-800-SAFE-FOOD. That number is in our show notes at yournutritionprofs.com.
Unfortunately, most consumers that experience adverse effects either don't attribute them to the supplement that they're taking or they don't report them to the FDA.
I completely understand that. I mean, I probably wouldn't blame a supplement for a bad reaction unless it happened almost immediately after taking it. It's the same thing with foodborne illness or food poisoning. You always blame the last meal you had, but it could have been a meal you consumed days or weeks or sometimes even months ago that's causing you to be sick.
It often is.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about food safety in a future episode. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss it.
It's so important to report these adverse effects. Even though the law states that the FDA does not have the authority to approve supplements or labeling before they are sold to consumers, if a supplement causes harm, FDA can work with the manufacturer to modify it or, in extreme cases, can remove it altogether from the market. However, this has rarely occurred in the U.S. Usually the FDA asks the manufacturers to do a voluntary recall of the adulterated supplement. And sometimes the manufacturer will do a recall and sometimes they won't.
So here's an example of why reporting adverse events from dietary supplements is so important and why it is so complicated. We're going to tell you this little story here. From February 2012 to February 2014, the FDA received 114 reports of adverse events involving consumers who ingested a weight loss and muscle building supplement called Oxy Elite Pro. Most of the adverse effect reports came from health professionals, but others came from consumers or friends or relatives of those affected.
And that makes perfect sense because when you're not feeling well, you don't immediately call poison control,
right?
Or your local state or health department. You go to urgent care or you go to your doctor or you complain to your friends.
Yeah, for sure. And to make things even more complicated, the 114 adverse event reports came from 33 different states, Puerto Rico, and 2 foreign nations.
Oh, my gosh.
Talk about complicated.
Yeah.
55% of those affected were women with a median age of 34. The average time they were taking the supplement before reporting the adverse events was about 2.5 months or 75 days. So it's like what we said before. It took them more than 2 months to attribute their symptoms to a supplement that they were taking. 60% of these patients had to be hospitalized.
More than half.
Yeah. But what really got FDA interested were the reports from the healthcare providers at the only transplant medical center in Hawaii. They notified FDA about 7 cases of adults who were previously healthy but who developed acute liver issues after ingesting the Oxy Elite Pro supplement, and 3 required liver transplants.
That is so scary, all from taking a supplement.
Right, so crazy. And that's not all.
Oh, no.
There were 3 additional deaths attributed to Oxy Elite Pro. 2 of them were soldiers, a 32-year-old female in 2011 and a 41-year-old male in 2012, who both collapsed while running and then died. Jeez. Both were taking quite a few supplements, but their list of supplements included Oxy Elite Pro. That also makes things more complicated when it's they're taking more than one supplement.
Yeah.
A third death, though, in 2013 was a 45-year-old woman who consumed 13 capsules of Oxy Elite Pro in a 27-day period, and she died from a brain aneurysm. She didn't take any other dietary supplements or medications.
That's so terrible. What happened?
Well, since April of 2012, FDA had been sending warning letters to supplement manufacturers who used an ingredient called DMAA in their products. DMAA, or the sciencey word 1,3-dimethylmelamine, or methylhexanamine, had been tagged by the FDA as being potentially harmful. Manufacturers then removed their products that contained DMAA from the market, including Oxy Elite Pro.
So the issues were caused by the DMAA?
That's what they thought. Yeah.
And well, I mean, it's good. The companies did what was expected of them. They were removing those products from the market, right?
Right, exactly. But that's not the end of the story.
Oh, no.
So USP Labs, who is the maker of Oxy Elite Pro, did pull their DMAA containing product off the market. But then they reformulated their product. They removed the DMAA and they put in a chemical called ageline instead. This ageline is also known as Bael, B-A-E-L. You may have heard it referred to that way. So they began selling this new formulation in early 2013. I think it was still called Oxy Elite Pro, but it had a different formulation.
I mean, it's not that unusual for a supplement to be reformulated.
No, you see that all the time. Yeah. Like, new formula, new and improved.
New and improved.
But here's where USP Labs made their mistake. So the DSHEA rules we talked about in the previous episode about supplement ingredients are that they all have to be approved by FDA as GRAS, generally recognized as safe. And they need to be on this GRAS list before they can be used. If you're going to use something that's not on the list, you have to submit a new dietary ingredient or NDI form to FDA and get their approval. You have to do this before you sell the supplement that has the new formulation so that FDA can make sure that the new ingredient is safe. USP Labs did not do that. They didn't submit the NDI notice. If they had, FDA would not have allowed the sale of that particular formulation because ageline was also considered potentially harmful.
So when the doctors in Hawaii noticed the liver issues from this new formulation from May to October of 2013, they reported them to the FDA. A warning letter was sent to USP Labs. Finally, they voluntarily recalled all Oxy Elite Pro products in November 2013. They just stopped selling it. But this dangerous product had been on the market for almost a year, and obviously there's some pretty serious, horrible consequences.
Oh, so terrible. I mean, liver transplants.
I know.
Wow. And death. Oh. So you can really see how complicated this gets, right? To be honest, I don't think it's that unusual for supplement manufacturers to not submit those NDIs prior to supplement sales. It's time consuming and it's expensive, and they want to get those new and improved products on the market ASAP, right? So it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. But in this case, not a great idea. That's why it's so important to report any negative effect you notice after consuming a supplement. FDA will only know there's a problem with a certain supplement or a certain formula if people report the adverse effects.
And if they're not submitting the NDI, I mean, what else are they maybe not doing? Because it's up to them for the good manufacturing practices. It's on them to make sure all of these things are.
It's an excellent point.
Yeah. So here's another thing that may concern you. Anyone can create, market, and sell a dietary supplement. Because the FDA does not test or approve them before they can be sold, you and we could decide we wanted to make our very own Nutrition Prof supplements.
Let's do it.
We could buy the ingredients online. We could mix them together in the kitchen, put the mix into capsules, market and sell them to the public, and no one could stop us.
Wow, we could make a fortune. I mean, it's like a $40 billion industry, and there are more than 50,000 different supplements on the market. What's one more?
I don't know if I really want to be in the supplement business, but, this isn't to say that all supplements are made in small batches. People often will find manufacturers online that they'll contract with to make, people's very own magic potion.
I know of magic potion.
We've spent a lot of time discussing adulteration and the harm supplements can cause. But the good news is that the vast majority of supplements do not seem to be extremely harmful when taken at the recommended dosages. The bad news is that very few have any scientific evidence to support their claims. And many consumers assume that even if they are ineffective, they're harmless. But as we've discussed here, they may not be.
Right.
We spend $40 billion a year on things that have not been proven to be effective.
Isn't that crazy? Wow. So I guess if they're not harmful to our bodies, they might just be harmful to our wallets.
Oh, for sure.
There are a lot of people, though, who take supplements and report having a positive outcome.
Yeah, I have students tell me that all the time.
I know a lot of people who swear by them, and any health benefit they have, they attribute to the supplements they're taking.
Of course. But that's one thing the Office of Dietary Supplements tries to do. They evaluate all the research that's out there about a particular supplement to determine benefits, if any, what's been shown to be effective with rigorous scientific research. Unfortunately, much of the positive effects consumers report after taking supplements, they just haven't been proven using these scientific research methods, and instead are linked to the placebo effect, the idea that because you believe something will have an effect, it does.
I love the placebo effect. It's really fascinating.
It is. A recent study published in the British Medical Journal looked at self-reported versus clinically measured health outcomes in over 21,000 users and non-users of multivitamin and mineral supplements, or MVMs. Those who take MVMs self-reported 30% overall better health than non-users. But when scientists actually looked at their health markers, things like blood pressure, blood glucose, body mass index, there were no measurable clinical differences between the supplement users and the non-users.
So the perception of their health improvements wasn't real? And why was there a discrepancy between perceived and actual health?
Well, researchers concluded that the MVM users had positive expectations that taking an MVM would lead to better health. They believed they were healthier because of the MVM, even though they weren't any healthier than those who didn't take them, at least according to what these scientists looked at. And, that's a perfect example of the placebo effect in action.
Wow.
But one thing that the study didn't measure was the health in individuals before and after taking the supplement.
Well, I've read some studies that have looked specifically at that particular question, and most of these studies found no clinical differences either. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University reviewed several large studies involving more than 450,000 people that showed that's a high number. Of people. And these studies showed that MVMs did not reduce the risk for heart disease, cancer, mental decline, nor did they prevent things like heart attacks, heart surgeries, or premature death. So the folks at Johns Hopkins said, skip the MVM and instead fix your diet. Eat plenty of vegetables, fruits, low-fat dairy, whole grains, and choose fish or poultry instead of red meats.
And the U.S. Preventative Health Service Task Force recently issued a similar report. They concluded that for most people, supplemental vitamins and minerals are not necessary and do not prevent chronic disease.
So I'm gonna rethink my MVM. It's really important to do your homework before you consume a supplement. Don't assume that natural means safe or even good. Some of the most toxic and dangerous substances are natural.
All natural.
I mean, think death cap mushrooms, poison hemlock, cocaine from coca plants, opium from poppy flowers. Those are all natural. The FDA does not define the term natural, so you have to keep that in mind.
And before choosing to take a dietary supplement, remember that although they may help you get some essential nutrients, if you don't eat a nutritious variety of foods, supplements cannot take the place of an overall healthy diet. So let's spend that $40 billion on quality food instead.
I agree 100%. And so did the people at Johns Hopkins.
Good company.
Also keep in mind that manufacturers may fortify foods with vitamins, minerals, and other supplement ingredients. Things like breakfast cereals and beverages, a lot of those have a lot of fortified vitamins and minerals. As a result, you might be getting more of these nutrients than you think, And more is not always better. It might cost more, and it might also raise your risk of side effects. You can have side effects from overdosing on nutrients.
And students are always so surprised that there are upper limits on things like vitamins and minerals, because vitamins and minerals are good for you.
Right. So too much vitamin A can cause headaches, damage to your liver, reduced bone strength, and birth defects. Excess iron can cause things like nausea, vomiting, and it might damage the liver and other organs. So you don't want to overdose on vitamins and minerals. I mean, you don't want to be deficient, but you don't want to overdose either. Think of it this way. Topping off your gas tank doesn't make your car go any faster.
I love that example. I use that in my classes too. So since 60 to 80% of Americans consume some sort of dietary supplement, most of us use supplements with no adverse effects or problems. So good news.
Luckily.
However, there are some groups who really need to be careful when choosing their supplements. Those with certain underlying medical conditions that we've mentioned previously, those who are pregnant or nursing, young children, and of course, athletes and those in the military.
Another thing you want to keep in mind, some supplements can reduce the effectiveness of prescription meds you might be taking. Things such as birth control pills.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't want that to go. Heart medications and some antidepressants. Other supplements may interact with meds causing harm and maybe even a trip to the ER.
And athletes should always check with their governing body for their sport to determine which substances or ingredients have been banned. The World Anti-Doping Agency publishes a list every year of banned substances, and most organizations like the International Olympic Committee and the NCAA adopt this list for their athletes. Athletes should only use supplements that have been verified by a third party, as we discussed earlier, to make sure that they are unadulterated and that they contain the ingredients in the correct dosage. You don't want to be disqualified from a competition because a banned ingredient ended up in your dietary supplement.
Right, after all that work?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be awful.
And, look at your diet first. You may be able to tweak your intake for the benefits you seek without having to worry about possible disqualification.
Members of the military also need to be careful. The Department of Defense has its own prohibited ingredients list of banned substances, and it has a program of drug testing in place. It's super rare, but there have been military members who have lost their commissions because they consumed supplements that had banned ingredients. As we talked about before, others suffered health consequences. I mean, as bad as dying from dietary supplements. We've got a link to the military banned supplements list in our show notes, and it's really interesting to note that DMAA and Ageline are both on that list.
The military also created Operation Supplement Safety, or OPSS. This looks specifically at military use of dietary supplements and provides educational resources about specific supplements. They also have an app to help you choose a supplement or check for prohibited ingredients, including a checklist to screen your supplement for safety. Most of the information is available to the general public, not just members of the military. The website is opss.org, and we've linked it in the show notes.
I've been to that website several times, and it has a lot of really, really good information. So definitely check it out. Okay, let's bottom line it, Megan.
All right. Before taking a dietary supplement, we suggest that you, 1, define your reason or goal for taking it. Can you modify your diet instead? Nature packages nutrients and substances like phytochemicals in foods in a synergistic way, so you almost certainly get much more benefit from a dietary change than you would from taking a single nutrient or set of nutrients. Food first.
Always. I've had students tell me they can't afford healthy foods, but then they come to class with all of these supplements, right? Bars and beverages, and they're spending a lot of money on that. That never makes any sense to me. It's like if you had a car that didn't run, but you decided to spend your money painting it instead of fixing the engine. Another car.
I don't understand it either. I've seen the same thing. Again, fix your diet first, then and only then take a supplement. So a few more things to consider before taking a supplement.
Okay, there are usually several brands to choose from, so look for one of the certification marks from a third-party verifier like USP, NSF, or Informed Sports. At least you'll know that the dosage of supplement ingredients match the label. and that they were made with good manufacturing practices.
And then once you have chosen a supplement, check the FDA website to make sure it doesn't have any reports of adverse effects, or use the OPSS website to help you determine if you need one and which one may be best for you.
That's so important. We've got the links to both of those sites in the show notes for this episode.
Don't assume all supplements are effective, since there is nobody really checking them. Even the third-party verifiers aren't checking to see if the supplement actually does what the supplement claims. If you begin taking a supplement and you don't feel any benefits, you may want to try a different brand or change your diet instead. Remember, the placebo effect can be very powerful.
And finally, if you have any underlying medical conditions or take prescription drugs for anything, including things like birth control pills or antidepressants, check with your doctor or pharmacist before taking a supplement. Active ingredients in supplements can interfere with the effectiveness of these drugs or cause harmful side effects, like we discussed earlier. Be careful. Not all supplements are harmless.
And that's it for dietary supplements. Whew, that was a lot of information.
It was. Thanks for joining us. Join us next time when we will be discussing and eating one of our unusual foods.
Class dismissed.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find the show notes and a list of sources on our website, yournutritionprofs.com.
Your homework is to follow us at Your Nutrition Profs on Instagram and to listen to our next episode. You can listen on Amazon Prime, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found. We'd appreciate it if you'd like us, write a review, subscribe, and invite your family and friends to join us too.
If you have a nutrition or health question you'd like answered, let us know. We may do a show about it. Send an email to yournutritionprofs@gmail.com or click on the Contact Us page on our website.
Thanks to Brian Pittman for creating our artwork. You can find him on Instagram at BrianPittman77. See you next time.